a cop from the 90s who just woke up in the 21st century.
I've been dreaming about killing you for 40 years.
She's his new partner.
What I wouldn't do for some action.
With all the right moves.
I'm impressed.
And all the wrong phrases.
Take this job, you can shovel it.
Close enough.
Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes. Demolition Man, rated R. Starts Friday, October 8th.
Be well, everyone, and welcome to Cinema Arcade. This is the podcast about movies, video games, and the sparks that fly when those worlds collide. I am your host, Steve Guntley, and we are talking about the 1993 action comedy science fiction weird fucking movie Demolition Man. And who are the other two seashells joining me here on the back of the toilet today?
I don't like to be alluded to a butt seashell, but I am.
Own it. Yeah, you're a butt seashell. And who else is joining us here today? And also, what's your name?
J-Bear.
I am one of the people who live under L.A.
There you go.
Because I am not a fan of the police state.
That's fair. I understand that. Yeah, it looks like they have better food down there anyway.
Honestly,
and
yeah.
you can swear, and you don't have to be all fucking polite to everyone. Yeah, that's right. The 90s suck. Yeah, you don't have to say be well to anyone. Well, we are continuing a two-part sort of makeshift series on big inflection points for action stars, where they took a big swing, did an action comedy to try and change their fortunes, and it wound up kind of being the end of the road for both of these guys. It's obviously a comedy. What are you talking about?
Well, I didn't think it was intending to be a comedy.
Oh, it's fully intending. It's intentionally a comedy.
Okay.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I'm going to go out on a weird limb and say I think this movie is one of the very rare examples of conservative comedy that I think is funny.
Taking big swings right at the gate.
Yeah. I'm still fleshing out the idea a little bit, but yeah.
I see what you're saying. However, I still think this is actually a very liberal comedy making fun of conservative values.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think Stallone is not aware of that, which I think is what makes it really funny.
Stallone comes out in cryospace and immediately is like, I don't like any of this fascist bullshit.
I mean, this is a movie. The anxieties at the center of this seem to have been percolating in Stallone's brain for a long time, and this is a dystopian future in which everyone in the world is a sensitive pussy liberal, and the only thing that can save the day is a muscle-bound violent thug who will go in and shoot everybody up and set things right. This is very much responding to the rise of PC culture in the 90s when men were going to therapy and wearing sweaters, and they were talking about their feelings, and we were trying not to offend people. And you could see kind of a guy like Stallone, who grew up in this earlier age and prides himself in this very traditional sort of masculinity. You could see how he would be railing against that.
I feel like he was surprisingly with the times in this from my vibes with it.
I think he's having fun. I think he doesn't have a writing credit on this movie, but he is obviously very involved in every project that he does, as we saw with Cliffhanger recently. Let's get into it a little bit. Let's talk about Demolition Man, which was released October 8th, 1993. It's directed by Marco Brambilla. It's written by Peter Lenkov, Robert Renault, and Daniel Waters. And it stars Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, Sandra Bullock, Dennis Leary, Benjamin Bratt, Bob Gunton, Nigel Hawthorne, Glenn Shaddix, Rob Schneider, Grandel Bush, Troy Evans, and Bill Cobb. So this is written by a guy named Peter Lenkov, who after college he took a flyer and he drove to Hollywood with no connections whatsoever, and he just started writing a bunch of scripts and sending them out. and he was able to sell this one to Warner Brothers. And his movie was a dark action thriller about a cop who was cryogenically frozen and thawed in the distant future. It was going to be very, very serious and straight-faced, and in its original iteration, it was going to be a two-hander for Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Van Damme would be playing the villainous character in that one.
People who famously had wonderful careers after this period.
Absolutely. And famously cool, normal people who are not psychopaths and weirdos at all. I think Van Damme's probably fine, but he was heavy into cocaine at this time. heavy into cocaine.
So was a lot.
So there's a lot of people. Steven Seagal, he'll never come up on the show, so I just need to throw out
Thank
this
God.
take. Truly one of the worst human beings alive. Like, listen, I think they did an episode of the Behind the Bastards podcast about him. It had to be a two-parter.
Here's the thing, though. I think he's been one-upped in being the worst person alive by a few people.
There's been a few people since then, but he
That's really
is a
interesting, 'cause
credibly charged human trafficker.
I heard that he I heard that he was wacky, but I hadn't heard these like evil, like so he's done evil things.
Oh yeah, and he might also just be a complete top to bottom fraud. Like he might not even really know martial arts. Like it's this whole thing. He's very close personal friends with Vladimir Putin. He lives in Russia now, like like basically lives like an oligarch in Russia.
I'm sorry, I don't.
You didn't know this?
I don't keep up on
no,
Steven
that's very
Seagal
fair.
news.
You don't have a Steven Seagal Google alert
No,
like
I
I do?
don't.
He has many settled cases, many settled legal cases about sexual harassment. That were settled usually in ways where they don't talk about it anymore, which means he probably did it.
Yeah.
And just paid to have it go away.
A fascinating piece of shit. But this is
And
not.
I'm not even saying a few. It is like a lot.
It's a lot.
There's a crazy amount of accusations of sexual harassment.
I don't know how I
and
missed it.
more than
Yeah,
that.
check out the Behind the Bastards podcast. They did that about him.
I think I'll just take your guys' word
Take my
for
word
it,
on
and
it.
I'll just be like, it's too like
Yeah, I don't. It's one of those things of like, how much effort do you really want to invest into learning about Steven Seagal?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know
It
how
won't
many
affect your
Under
life.
Siege rewatches I'm gonna do.
You know, if you're gonna do any of them, that's the one to do. But yeah,
It's- all of this information I know about Steven Seagal was not information I looked for. It was all
Exactly.
things that I just was told.
either way, Seagal got thrown out when Sylvester Stallone took an interest in this movie, and actually a much bigger star than Steven Seagal. And so, obviously, his one condition for taking on the script was that he wanted this to be a little lighter. Now, like his constant rival Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was constantly trying to break into comedic roles to show that he could do a little bit more than just the big muscles, big guns, action guy thing. But Schwarzenegger had a couple of like really big hits in that area. He had Twins and he had Kindergarten Cop, and then he would have a few more, like Jingle All the Way was a big hit, and he's got a few more comedies that worked. Stallone had a harder time with it. His movies, the only really flops that he had in his career up to this point were when he tried to do comedy. So like Rhinestone, Oscar, Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, all just like massive, massive bombs. And so the studio brought in Daniel Waters. You might know that name if you're a fan of the 1989 cult film Heathers. He wrote and directed that movie. And he did a pass on the script to basically like punch this up and make the deadly serious action movie more of a comedic satire. He was inspired by a trip to City Walk. I don't know if y'all know Universal City Walk. It's this kind of curated like outdoor mall that's just outside Universal Studios theme park in L.A., and it's like really clean and really nice and like just a very kind of a big wonderland of an area. And it's really nothing like L.A. proper. Like L.A., as you get into it, is much more real than that. And so he had the idea of like, what if the entire future was just this kind of like Disney-fied, like very sanitized dystopia. And so he thought that was funny, and he developed the idea of a very clean, soft, anti-violent future city as a setting. Now, the first director that they approached to do this is David Fincher, who was just coming off of, right? Yeah. Isn't that wild? He was just coming off of the failure that was Alien 3, which he left after 2 weeks. Still a hot young music video director. This would have been a very different movie if David Fincher directed it, which he recognized, and he passed on the project, but he did recommend a buddy of his, a fellow commercial director named Marco Brambilla, who had never done a feature film before. So Stallone joined shortly after, and he was pushing hard for Jackie Chan to take on the Simon Phoenix role, which would have been
A very different movie.
a very different movie, and it also would have been a big breakout for Jackie Chan, like, before that eventually happened. Like, they tried a few times to make him a thing in the U.S., and it never really took until, like, 1996. They randomly did a re-release of Rumble in the Bronx that was a box office hit, and then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, Jackie Chan, you're an American movie star. But Chan passed on this because he did not want to play a villain. And so they had a strong second pick, and that was Wesley Snipes, new to our show. We are going to be talking about him a few times, but he was really kind of hitting the peak of his stardom around this time. He was, I think what makes Wesley Snipes unique is that he was kind of equally good at, like, muscle-bound action and broad comedy. Those were his two modes. So, like, his breakout roles were, like, Major League and White Men Can't Jump, where he is incredibly funny. But then he also is a martial artist, and he's, got the physique of, like, an action hero. And so he worked really well in straight-faced action movies like Passenger 57 and things like that. So, he was up and coming, and they really wanted him for this movie. He passed on the role multiple times. It wasn't until the producer and the director showed up on another movie set and pitched him in person that he was eventually convinced. They also
That's gotta feel so fucking good,
right? You have basically people come and beg you to do a movie.
I remember my dad left a job that he'd been at for like 20 years and was working at a different factory, and they went through like a whole strike and stuff, and he was like really worried about working here. And then somebody called the factory asking for him. And it was somebody that he'd worked with like a decade previously that thought of him for a role that was opening up, but had no other way to contact him. And I remember him coming home after that and feeling like a fucking $1 million. And so I can only imagine what it's like to have producers and like notable people show up and be like, hey, we really want you for this.
Yeah,
which, I mean,
right.
to be fair, at this point, Wesley Snipes was probably kind of at that level already.
Yeah, he was getting to be like an A-lister. Yeah,
like,
for sure.
That's got to be such a crazy thing to have as part of your life. Of like people finding you and being like, please come work with us.
That'd be so nice. Oh my god. Yeah. So they cast for the female lead. They cast Lori Petty, who I love. She's from Point Break and from A League of Their Own and a bunch of other things. Tank Girl. She's awesome.
Who did she play in Point Break?
She's the female lead of Point Break.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
the
The love
surfer girl.
interest.
Yeah. But she
Standing in between two men's true love.
exactly. Yeah, she
Being like, hey, we need a lady in this so that they know that this isn't like this is a wait.
we just need to soften the blow before we roll out the thruple thing. Like yeah. But yeah, oh god, Point Break is incredible.
Is there a video game?
No, tragically
Oh,
there is
no.
not. I would love to talk about that. But yeah, Lori Petty quit the production after only a few weeks. At the time, they cited creative differences, but Petty, in a interview later, revealed that she and Sylvester Stallone hated each other's guts, and she just couldn't work with him. And she was ultimately replaced by a very young Sandra Bullock. This wound up being one of her early kind of breakout roles. The year after this, she's going to be in Speed, and after that, it's like you're an A-list movie star from here on out. But this was kind of like the next big stepping stone for her. And she's great in this. She's very charming. Production on this was very difficult. It faced numerous delays due to injuries, staff turnover, and an LA wildfire that destroyed an entire soundstage. And this caused the budget to swell from $45 million to more than $70 million, which after marketing became closer to $100 million. And this is the second time in a row. If you remember, we just talked about Cliffhanger, which came out. It's the movie immediately before this. It's the same year. And that movie also went wildly over budget, but it was a big hit. And this movie was not as big as that. It ended up doing about $150 million, which is not bad, but like it was an expensive project, and it is showing less growth than the previous film. And this is going to be the last kind of unambiguous hit that Stallone has during this like movie star run of his. His next couple of films are big disappointments. It's like The Specialist with Sharon Stone doesn't do well. Judge Dredd in 1995, which we will cover, massive flop, critically and commercially. He did this movie called Copland in 97, which is like a really good movie that he's really good in. It's like a serious drama, like he put on weight and everything. But it wasn't like a big hit. It didn't get any Oscar noms. And then it's just kind of over for him until The Expendables in 2010. And that movie's successful and it spawns a series, but that is not like that's like junky, like B movie kind of franchise.
Creed.
Yeah, he has Creed. Yeah, but he's not the star of Creed, crucially. Yeah, so like Creed's kind of the passing of the torch thing. So yeah, it's kind of over for him from here on out. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this movie then, because when did everybody see it? When was your first exposure to it? J-Ben, how about you? Had you seen this before?
I have. I've seen it
Okay.
many, many times.
Hell yeah.
Probably as soon as it hit the video store. We watched it, rewatched it, became a household favorite. I loved this movie. I just thought it was such a fun, good time. I love Sandy B. Wesley Snipes is so flamboyant and fun as a villain.
Set your ass on fire. I always
This
think about the way he says that.
Vision of the world that future that was both realistic and idiotic. Just like
Strangely topical right now.
well, it's just like that's like when Steve was talking about like a conservative comedy, like that's, I feel like this is like what they fear that having universal health care will mean that we can't smoke, we can't drink, we can't fuck.
Right.
Which is interesting because famously the push towards like socialized healthcare was what got rid of a lot of that, basically made it illegal to do a lot of things like that and exclude people from getting health insurance because of conditions they had. So yeah, this is a very interesting scenario.
Justin, had you seen this movie before?
I saw this movie for the first time. I started watching about 6.5 hours ago.
Perfect. Did you have any concept of what this was? Like, based on that title, it doesn't really tell you that this is supposed to be a comedy.
Well, I had also forgotten what movie we were about to watch.
Fair.
And so I was like, Total Recall. Wait a minute.
Different one.
We're not doing two Arnolds in a row. What's the Stallone movie? And then I had to look into our chat again to see what it was. No, and throughout the movie, I didn't even find it funny.
Okay,
So that's
interesting.
there's a few things that I was like, oh, I got a little laugh out of it, but I wasn't like
the three seashells.
the three seashells was kind of funny.
You know, that's one of the most memorable bits.
There was
from
some
this
like
movie.
chucklers throughout the movie.
Yeah.
I also just learned I was apparently watching a European release.
Oh, okay. Because it was Pizza Hut.
Because they went to Pizza Hut instead of Taco Bell.
Wow.
That's one of the big things. So this movie has a really memorable and pretty funny bit of product placement here, which is there was a supposed franchise wars where all the different like corporations went against each other, and the only one that emerged triumphant was Taco Bell. And so now all restaurants are Taco Bell, and they run the shade from like fast food to like fine dining. But in Europe, they don't have Taco Bell, as we learned recently from the World Cup and the amazed response a lot of people were tweeting about discovering Taco Bell. So
Boy, did they get out of here at the right time for that.
they sure did. They sure
Imagine
did.
if they discovered Taco Bell like 2 weeks ago.
I know. I really like Taco Bell, and I want some, and I just keep not pulling the trigger because of that.
There's currently is it a parasite?
Yeah.
That is that was found potentially in Taco Bell lettuce that is not having a good time with people's intestines.
No, it is not. No,
They're
it's running rampant.
They are using the toilet a lot, apparently.
But yeah,
Is
so
it a parasite? I think it's a bacteria.
I think
I
it's a
don't
parasite.
know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the
I-
Cyclosporidia or whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's a parasite, but I could be wrong. But yeah, either way, that's a memorable bit of product placement. It's a Taco Bell in the American version, but it is a Pizza Hut if you're watching the European version.
And it is notable. Like there's cups and everything, and so now I'm like, well, they put in. Apparently, they did a bunch of reshoots to refilm those scenes to be to be Pizza Hut instead of Taco Bell, and now
Yeah.
I'm like, How different are the two? Did they do a good job of like shot for shot, quality for quality?
I'd be curious.
Reshoots, or is it like the Pizza Hut versions are like shittier?
Because when they go to the Taco Bell in the movie, it's just like a fancy restaurant, and it doesn't read as a Taco Bell in the traditional sense.
Because
So,
apparently, the only restaurants available are Taco Bells.
right. So, but they're not exclusively
Or
serving like
Pizza Huts.
Mexican food there. Just like I
Yeah.
don't think there's. So I think you could probably
But
just double up with. Like,
There was a
stirring shot.
lot of lines. There was a lot of man. I really could go for a pizza, but Pizza Hut,
Yeah.
like they talked about pizza quite a bit.
Okay, so they reshot some dialogue. Then.
A lot of dialogue, a lot of scenes. There was at one point there was a notable Pizza Hut cup that was in like 2 or 3 shots of the scene. They definitely did some effort because they discussed pizza specifically.
Yeah.
Not even like other things, but just pizza.
Well, so the basic premise of this movie, if you're not familiar, is that in the beginning, it's set in the hellscape that is Los Angeles in 1996.
Which is depicted similar to New York is depicted in other things we've seen.
Right.
It looks like the world of Snake Plissken.
It is like the Hollywood sign
The
is
world
on
of
fire.
what?
Escape from New York. Yeah.
Oh. I didn't hear. I didn't understand what you said.
Oh, fair.
Oh.
Well, either way,
Snake
that
Plissken, the star,
I
the
don't know what
character.
that is.
never mind.
I've never seen this
He's
movie.
the main character in
Okay.
Escape from New York and Escape
Okay.
from L.A.
Yes. So Hollywood Hills
escaped
are on.
twice?
Yes, he did. Hollywood Hills are on fire. It's this horrible like post-apocalyptic hellscape, and Stallone is Detective John Spartan, who is the baddest cop in the entire LAPD, and he has a nemesis, and that is the crime lord and psychopath Simon Phoenix.
Can I point out one thing as well? This movie came out in '93,
Yeah.
and the beginning of this movie was set in '96. So that's what they thought LA was going to be in 3 years.
Exactly.
There's context around it that is super racist.
Yeah, there were the LA riots
That's
around
fair.
the time, and things like that. So there was a lot of, especially when this movie was being written and shopped around, there was a lot of anxiety about crime running rampant. So he, in an attempt to rescue a bunch of hostages from Phoenix, he accidentally blows up a building. The hostages, who are already dead, are discovered and believed to be murdered by Spartan. So his punishment, since this is the futuristic year of 1996.
Let me interrupt you. There's another thing. This thing is set up around the idea that Simon Phoenix had set up himself as a
Kind of a martyr almost.
a war chief. Or
like a warlord.
a warlord in a center part of LA, and everyone obeyed his rules except for the bus drivers.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So he kidnapped all the bus drivers, and they are the ones who wind up dead. But the important part is that both Spartan and Phoenix are captured, and they are sent to a high-tech cryo prison where they are sentenced for like 70 or 80 years or something like that.
70 years.
He gets a really long sentence where he is climbs naked into a puddle of slime, and they freeze him, and that's that. And now the important thing to keep in mind about that is that resin cast that they made of like a Sylvester Stallone inside a big ice cube, those are on display, or they were. I don't think this chain exists anymore. But those were on display in every Planet Hollywood restaurant, which was co-owned by Stallone and Schwarzenegger and Bruce
What
Willis.
happened to Planet Hollywood?
I think they went bankrupt. I'm almost certain there's no Planet Hollywoods
I'm about
left.
to find out.
But they were kind of like a Hard Rock Cafe style thing for Hollywood.
What happened to Hard Rock Cafe?
Hard Rock Cafe is still around.
Still
Yeah,
around?
They're still around. I ate one in
think I've-
Paris.
Yeah, I've been to one somewhere. I don't think it was Chicago, but it was not my home area. So
Pretty sure there's still one in Vegas, and a bunch of other places. But yeah, so if you wanted to see,
there are 3 restaurants and 5 hotels left because of bankruptcy in '99.
yeah, it did not last. But if you want to see a resin cast of a nude Stallone hanging over your head while you eat a burger, go to Planet Hollywood, I guess.
So if they had a bunch of them and now a bunch of them are closed, does that mean there's just a bunch of them out in the wild now?
I would hope so. I hope somebody's like fashioned a chair out of it or something. But now we cut hard to the year 2032, and the future is incredibly different than the one that we're seeing in 1996. Now crime has been solved completely. There's not been a murder in, what did they say, like 10 or 11 years?
16 years.
16 years. There's not been a murder in 16 years. And the police officer, Lelina Huxley, who is played by Sandra Bullock, is bored out of her mind because she has a secret craving for action, and she loves how tacky and violent and gross the 90s were, and she wants to relive that kind of experience. And through a series of contrivances, Simon Phoenix is freed from his cryo prison during his parole hearing. He breaks loose, and he is rampaging on the streets of L.A. and murdering people left and right.
Well, in the implication here, the situation is that he is awoken for his hearing, and while he was frozen, he was implanted with all the information he needed to escape and essentially be a super criminal to carry out all of the things that the big guy needed.
Right.
So, like, he wakes up and is not sure why, but he's able to undo his own cuffs. He's able to use the computers and stuff, and he's like, why do I know all this shit?
Yeah,
this is crazy.
That's a crucial
This is a
part.
wild world.
That's a crucial part of the story is that, like, while they're in their cryo freeze, they're being fed information. So they're basically learning a skill and learning a trade so that when they do get defrosted, they'll have, like, abilities that they can go out into the world with. And so, like,
Sylvester Stallone's, John Spartan, his character was given the skills of a seamstress.
Yes, exactly. He comes out learning to sew because it's supposed to keep him
Sew
calmer.
and knit.
Exactly.
He has all the fiber arts.
He does, yes. So, they need to unfreeze Spartan so that he, as he often says in the movie, they need to use a maniac or send a maniac to catch one. He's the only guy who can bring down Simon Phoenix. But can you believe it? He's having a bit of a hard time adjusting to this world where he gets a ticket citation every time he swears. Or people aren't allowed to have sex anymore or smoke cigarettes or eat red meat. It's basically his worst nightmare. It's this liberal utopia that he must stay up nights screaming about.
The worst part about this utopia world for me personally is the music selection.
Oh, dear
the
God,
music selection, yeah.
Having a world where commercial jingles are your
Most
pop
popular,
songs.
yeah.
I thought that was so funny when I saw this as a kid. I
thought
that
it was
like,
hilarious.
I thought that was the most clever thing in the world. Now I look at it, I'm like, it doesn't really make sense that it would evolve that way, but like.
But having grown adults sing the Oscar Mayer Wiener song.
What is he singing in the Taco Bell? He's singing the Jolly Green Giant, like
Yeah.
the jingle, and I'm like, that's all pretty funny. The world that they've created here is deeply silly, and I think it's changed so much in a relatively short amount of time. 2032 is only 6 years from us right now as we're recording this. So it's
if Palantir and Flock get what they want.
yeah, it's not. It's going to be much closer to the 1996 of this movie. But it takes a suspension of disbelief to believe the society could have changed this much this fast. But everybody has their own vernacular now.
And
like
they also kind of justify as there being a major earthquake in like 2010.
Right, yeah.
That did significant amounts of damage and required a benefactor to come in and use this opportunity to basically take control of the region.
Which is this big thing that you grow up. When I grew up partially in California, and it's one of those big things you have beaten into your head early on, is that there is going to be a big one, capital B, capital O, and that is going to effectively break California off from the United States and sink it into the ocean. That's been something that's been kind of like beaten into my head since I was a very little kid. I don't know if the science behind it is actually very sound. I think there are, some evidence that there's instability along the fault lines, but
but these things happen like every 50,000 to 4 million years.
Yeah,
so,
it's a slower process than all that.
And let me tell you, I don't think we're going to be around by then.
No, probably. Well, us three definitely.
Well, no, I
not.
mean
Yeah.
humanity.
Yeah, no, it's
we're doing a good job.
Yeah.
We'll be Martians by that point.
So that's kind of the basic setup. Then it becomes this sort of cat and mouse thing of him trying to chase it down while also trying to adapt to this new world that he doesn't really understand.
I just want to say that isn't Sandra Bullock, just so charming in this?
Absolutely.
She's
very cute.
She's so cute, and like she's just like, and she kicks ass, and she's just like, she's so like, you can see the makings of a movie star.
Very much so.
In this movie. In this movie, you're like, who is she? And you're like, oh my gosh, she's got a career ahead of her.
And I'm glad that they didn't make her incompetent.
No.
Because, like, the framing of this world is that, like, everyone is kind of incompetent, and she has always wanted action. She's always been watching, like, action movies and, like, stuff that's technically not really allowed anymore. And in the movie, she is pretty consistently useful and doing things and able to take care of herself.
Yeah.
To the point where, at, like, near the end, Sylvester Stallone, John Spartan, like, tases her out so that she doesn't get involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he knows that there was no other way to stop her from getting involved.
Now, Justin, you had messaged the group thread when you were watching this movie that
they have this thing where after waking him up, they go through, like, he's asking about his wife and his daughter and stuff, and then him and Lenina start getting, like, close and friends, and the implication is that she says, I'll look up your daughter for you, and she's like, no, I don't want to know.
Right.
And I was like, we're gonna find out that that's his daughter.
That was a concern I think that test audiences had as well. So there was going to be a subplot where he found his daughter. It was never intended to be her, but a lot of people were worried that it was going to be her.
And
there was a subplot where she is alive and she's living with the underground people, and that, like, he gets to have a reunion with her. And they cut that from the movie just to avoid that ambiguity.
Yeah, and I feel like it was like the version that we ended up with, I feel like did a reasonable job of, like, I had that thought in my mind just because that's how so many of these movies end up going. But then it was like the more you thought about it, you're like, I feel like she would know.
Yeah.
Right? Because she's actively not aware. And this is a world where they know everything.
It never, like, I knew they weren't, because, like, they wouldn't have that, like, not a mainstream movie.
Yeah.
Maybe in a Targaryen situation.
Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars.
And they're also not going to go with it just because, like, their version of sex that this future has.
Once they got to that point, I was like, yeah, I don't think this is
right. Yeah, they just use VR helmets, but yeah, so it's a lot of the fun of this movie is, like, Wesley Snipes kind of rampaging through, being, like, very campy and very over the top, and just
and the costuming in this movie is amazing.
It's so 90s.
So it's so 90s. The cops look like they're out of Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation. Am I the only one who gets that reference?
No, I understand the reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, like, is sharp as nails, and the outfits that Simon rocks each one is just a banger.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've always had so much fun with this movie. Like, it is incredibly dumb. It's incredibly cheesy. Like, it's got all this ADR dialogue that makes it kind of, like, sound like a TV show, you know? And we have this whole subplot with this society of people that are living underground, away from the laws of everything. And it's like this rebel group that's being led by Dennis Leary in one of his very early film roles. He was a stand-up comedian at this time who was known for his kind of, like, rants against PC culture and things like that. Oh, I like to smoke. I like to drink. I like to do this. You know, so he's kind of good casting for this as the mouthpiece for this sort of ideology. That subplot ultimately doesn't prove to be all that important, but it does give them, like, a chance to break up the above ground antics that are going on.
Can I just say that fucking museum that they fight in for 25 minutes? Insane museum.
Yeah. Oh, the Museum of Violence.
Well, because he goes to the. It's not like the museum, because it's the Museum of, like, History or something, and it's like the exhibit of violence or whatever.
The wing
of violence, and then they find, like, the armory, which has hundreds of weapons from humanity's past, firearms mostly, and all of them have live usable ammo within arm's reach.
Yeah.
And so they just have this crazy bang out gunfight that ends up in the Historical Museum of LA before the earthquake. And so they end up in, like, this 90s kind of hellscape version of New York for a little while as well. They just, like, keep going from set piece to set piece to set piece for a solid chunk of time.
Yeah.
And it was pretty fun and a wild ride.
Absolutely.
And we should mention that Wesley Snipes, just like you can see the setup for Blade because his martial arts is so good.
I mean, he was like a champion martial artist like before he was an actor, like in the early 80s.
Yeah,
you
but
know,
that
so
doesn't always like
it doesn't always translate.
translate like a lot. There's a lot of people they try to make movie stars who were martial arts experts, and they didn't have the charisma, they didn't have the way to communicate with their bodies and act with their bodies whilst doing martial arts. And Wesley Snipes is such a genius at it. It's just it's such an amazing watch.
There's always something different. And like obviously you can go in and like go deep into that, but like having action movie stars and like people who are actually able to fight, it's just such a more fun ride through the action scenes because there's not like cuts to hide, things that don't quite line up. They, at this point, both of them know what they're doing to the point of where the action scenes are just like fun romps.
So this is like a fun romp, but I do want to say there are a couple of really interesting moments of social commentary. Like I really loved the moment when they revealed what like 183 was, like a murder, death, kill, MDK, and everyone's like, what the hell are you talking about? And like I do believe like in our lifetimes we'll get to a point where like murder is hopefully that rare, like especially like not so much in bigger cities like the ones we live in, but like in the towns that I grew up in, there's like one murder every 30 years or something like that. And so like it was really sort of shocking, and to see that shock I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so rare that it was notable when it happened. Like we had a spree killer at one point, and that was like shocking to the town.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, murder rates have been going down pretty steadily. It's not like
I have a conspiracy theory about that.
Okay.
My conspiracy theory is that everyone is so busy with their phones they don't murder people as much as they used to.
That's fair. It's also related to why birth rates are going down. But,
that
that's
might be the economy as well.
Yeah, also that, yeah. Well, let's switch over to talk about the game a little bit because I am running on fumes, and these games are pretty interesting.
Yeah,
actually.
they are interesting.
There was two distinct games.
Yeah.
One was the 3DO version, and one was the everything else version.
Yeah, let's start with for a little context, it took a couple of years for these games to come out. These were released in 1995, and some of them into 1996. So, like, that's already well past the point where Demolition Man has come and gone. It's on VHS, and there's not really any plans for a sequel. So it's kind of unusual that it waited this long. But having that little extra development time never really hurts, because we've seen so many games suffer from having, like, you need to have this game done by this release date, and it turns out to be unplayable garbage. We encountered that just last week with Last Action Hero. This game is not the Last Action Hero game. This is much more polished, it's much more playable, and it has a little bit more ambition than I was even expecting. So let's start with the Super NES and Genesis and Sega CD versions, which we played the Super Nintendo version, but all three are pretty identical. It's your pretty basic, like, side-scrolling, like, action platformer. There's a lot of heavy side-scrolling and jumping. You could shoot your gun in 8 different directions. You have grenades, and you're just kind of mowing down wave upon wave of enemy. I think it makes a good impression right from the get-go. You get to do, like, the bungee thing from the helicopter, and you get to, like, shoot guys while you're falling through the bungee. That's already pretty fun. There's a really kind of smooth animation style to this game that I was not expecting, at least in these side-scrolling segments. But once you beat the first side-scrolling segment, the surprise for me was that it kind of alternates between, like, side-scrolling and top-down, right? So, like, the second segment is a top-down shooter, kind of like the Die Hard game that we played, or maybe like a little bit like classic
people.
Gauntlet. Yeah.
And they very adorably, when you rescue them, they say, "Be well," and to disappear.
Be well. Yeah, exactly. You just have to run around the museum saving civilians. Once you've saved enough of them, a gate will open and you can move into the next section.
Yeah. And I think it very quickly kind of established itself as, like, apparently these games were each developed by, like, 3 people. And good on them, because they both we only played was it this Genesis version technically?
The Super Nintendo.
The Super Nintendo
Same
version.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And felt very fluid, smooth. There was a few things that were annoying, but in this era, that was like less than normal.
It was mostly having to do with level design, like especially as we got into some of the later sections, and it was not clear what was a pit and what was not, and what you could walk into and what you couldn't.
Their pits were just like a collection of razor wire,
which I thought was in like the foreground.
Yeah.
I thought that was something like just to give the game like depth, and I thought you could like walk past it, but no, that's something you walk into and die.
But all of the negatives were pretty minor compared to most games in this era. Like these were the top down sections and the like side scrolling sections were very fun.
Yeah.
They were pretty decently made. The top-down sections were just like crazily mowing down enemies as you move through the level.
Yeah, it's just real like arcade like Twitch shooter, which I really enjoyed.
We played a few levels and we watched a video, and at the end the like scorecard came up. Apparently there's over 1,000 bad guys to kill throughout the game.
It seems low, honestly, considering the museum level and how quickly they respawn. That seems low.
I think there's only like 5 or 6 levels. So
Yeah,
that
it's
might
not super
explain it.
long.
And the side-scrolly levels have significantly less bad guys to kill
They
just
do.
by virtue of it being 2D.
Yeah. But this was like really solid. The only difference between these versions and the Sega CD version is that there's a couple of full motion video clips from the movie. But the only other thing noteworthy to say about that is that Demolition Man was the final game ever released on the Sega CD. So RIP to the Sega CD. But let's talk a little bit about this other version, because
And few people cried.
it gives us the opportunity to talk about a console we've never covered before, and that's the 3DO, a very, very odd kind of ultimate footnote in gaming history. So the 3DO was released in 1993. It was made specifically as like the more grown-up rival to Nintendo and Sega, which was still being marketed at like 12-year-old boys. And this was the brainchild of Trip Hawkins, who's one of the founders of EA. And so he had a lot of money to play around with. And basically the concept of the 3DO was that it was sort of like a VCR, right? Like no one company owned the VCR. So you got to just kind of make the technology non-proprietary, and everybody could make their own version of a 3DO if they licensed it. So Panasonic was the first one to make it. But then Gold Star made one. A couple of other companies made one. I think the one I have is a Gold Star, but it's I don't have any of the cables for it anymore. But yeah, it was promising 32-bit graphics at a time when like Nintendo was still doing 16-bit, and this was 2 years before the PlayStation. It was a CD-based system, so it was very, very advanced. But unfortunately, all of that technology came with a very advanced price point. This system sold at release in 1993 for $700.
Wow.
Which would be close to $1,600 today.
Wowzers.
That was, for comparison, the Super Nintendo was $299. All right, this was a pretty ridiculously huge ask, especially for a console that didn't really have any killer apps. The biggest game to come out of the 3DO was Road Rash, which is the motorcycle beat 'em up game.
And it
where
also, that was a Genesis title as well.
Yeah, exactly. They ported it over to other systems and on PlayStation, and it got more success there. But it originated on the 3DO.
A lot of my childhood was spent playing that game.
I bet. Yeah, yeah.
We
You
owned
use a chain to like whack
5
mechanics.
games.
It's really fun for maybe 10 minutes. Then you kind of see everything it's got to offer.
See, it may have been because of different time periods, but I was playing it when I was like 6.
Oh,
7.
okay,
So
okay.
like I played a lot. Because we had like that and Lion King are the only two that really come to mind.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what other games we had.
I mean, so that's the Demolition Man for the 3DO had a little bit more ambition since they had a little bit more technology at their
was
disposal.
A fucking wild.
It's very
game.
strange. This is a game that's like 4 or 5 different games in one, and like each level is kind of doing its own thing. You also get some begrudging original footage of Sylvester Stallone. I would say he's reciting a couple of lines, and he has 30 seconds to get this out before he has to go work out or whatever. So he is speed running through these handful of lines, where he's just insulting you for choosing an easier difficulty.
Well, and this game reminded me so much of Area 51, the arcade game.
Yes.
It was just like almost identical.
Yeah, the opening sequence is a light gun game. It's like a stationary light gun game where you have to shoot like enemies that pop out from behind crates. It does look like it's modeled exactly after Area 51. He's even wearing the same outfit as the soldiers in that game. And yeah, you get little shots of Stallone like looking around, looking pensive, or like clocking the room, and then you switch into his perspective and you do like a shooting gallery style thing. So that was already interesting. But then it switches from that into a Mortal Kombat style fighting game where you are playing as Spartan fighting Simon Phoenix. I think this happens like 5 or 6 times throughout the game where you guys get into like a little boss brawl. It seems very, very limited in terms of like the fighting engine. It seems like mostly just punch and kick and punch and kick. The video that we watched, because we didn't have live action access to this game, was mostly just people like missing narrowly doing the uppercut move, just like uppercut,
Yeah.
uppercut. Didn't look like it was the most complex thing, but switching from a light gun game into a fighting game is a weird move. It's also
And
something
then-
you could only really do on the 3DO because they had this weird controller where if you wanted to use a light gun, you had to plug it into the controller. So you're kind of basically daisy chaining them all together, but it's all still plugged in, so you can like switch back and forth between it. That's a nerdy little detail for everybody. But yeah, then we get a driving sequence in this game, like a kind of very rudimentary 3D driving sequence, and then we get like a full motion first-person shooter, like
It's like
Doom
a-
style, like where you're like wandering through hallways and like blasting bad guys in a kind of a more free-range 3D motion. So already you have like a bunch of different gameplay modes. So if you're ever getting bored with the one thing the game has to offer, just like stick it out for a little bit. It's going to give you something different. I always admire when a game tries to do something like this. And so I was just kind of surprised that Demolition Man was one of the ones that tried it.
Yeah, and I was impressed because from the video we were watching, it looked like the most frustrating part was the Mortal Kombat-esque sequences, and
Yeah.
they didn't seem that frustrating.
No, not too bad.
And it might just be that the game wasn't very difficult, but it seemed like a very playable game.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think of this, Shaban? I mean, you definitely left. You seem to like you were saying we should just go like play Area 51 somewhere. it clearly like scratched that part of your brain.
It definitely. I thought it looked great. I thought like it just felt like a really fun arcade game, and I'm just like I love the variety, and it was just like I could have wasted a lot of quarters on this if I had encountered this in the wild when I was a child, and I just thought it was really well done, and just like I like the inventiveness. I like both the games. The first game, I did considerably better in the top down as opposed to the jumping situations.
The jumping seemed to stymie you a little bit because it is very loosey-goosey, and it's also like it's incumbent also on catching ledges and pulling yourself up on ledges, which are not always clearly
And then you can
demarcated.
also like climb along the power lines and stuff. It was a notably
Justin
interesting.
was very good at this game.
Yeah, you were better at this one than we were. Yeah, for sure. Especially with you were able to kill the first boss in the top-down level, which was like a difficult boss.
Yeah.
It's Simon Phoenix recurring every time, but he has this very ridiculously overpowered gun that will take a big chunk out of you, and you have to dodge back and forth from cover. I mean, I thought these games were all like shockingly pretty well designed. There was a lot more
Yeah.
care
Yeah.
put into them than certainly than the last
Well,
action
and they're
hero game.
fun, and like they're fun. They're more than functional.
Yeah.
which is just like they're just a delight to play.
Yeah, and it's such a crazy thing because we've played games from that era with more developers that were shit. And so it's like, I don't know if it's a mix of just like having really talented people or if they just had more time considering it took a few years for them to come out, or what the situation is. But it just goes to show that for a small group, they can still make good stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is one of those examples of one where I don't know how well they sold, but like definitely worth the time.
Yeah, I can't imagine these games were huge hits, but they were well regarded at the time. So, like, if you're a kid looking for a game and you're reading all the magazines at the time, like, you probably got drawn in this direction, at least for a little bit. And I probably would have really been into this. I mean, this did remind me a lot of another Acclaim release, which that we already covered, which was the Stargate game, which I played a ridiculous amount of times when I was younger. And this had kind of a similar feel to it, and I think I was responding to that. But it was faster and a little more fluid. And I had a good time. And I always have a good time with Demolition Man. But we should move on to our rankings because we are all so very sleepy and we're ready to move on. Is Demolition Man a good movie, good game, bad movie, bad game, or some mixture in between? Justin, why don't you kick us off?
Ooh. I'm going to say it was a fun movie. I think it's one of those movies where I don't think I would say, like, oh, it was a great movie. I'd just be like, oh, it was fun.
Yeah, sure.
2-hour movie, runtime, maybe a little on the long side, but I think it never feels like they are wasting time, at least not too much.
No.
Yeah, just overall kind of a fun experience. Not the best movie, didn't get the greatest reception ever, but it was worth, the time. And the games were fun.
Hell yeah. Amazing.
Better than average by far.
I think a really fun movie, like a good movie, like that actually took some like a very fun action comedy sci-fi, because I love the sci-fi angles and like the looking at the world in the future and all the cute little sci-fi mechanisms in the story that really fuel this story. And like it's a really fun action flick. I'm like sometimes like I really do miss an action flick.
Yeah.
And like for some reason, like the stuff that gets put on Netflix or Prime just doesn't scratch the itch. Like it's just all of the things that they produce just feel so blah, and this one just feels so lively and technicolor.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about the games?
Great games.
Good. I'm glad you clicked with it. I really enjoy this movie too. Like, I can't defend every part of it. It is very bombastic and dumb in like a Joel Silvery kind of way, but it is a beloved favorite from when I was young. I think a lot of it still holds up. I think a lot of it's pretty funny, especially if you walk in with a grain of salt. And I was very pleasantly surprised by the quality of these games, by the ambition and the scope, and just the little bit extra layer of care that we did not see with the last action hero game, which I will just continue to crap on, because putting these back to back really does put into relief how lazy an effort that last action hero game was by comparison. I think these are really fun games. So that concludes our weird little cobbled together series about the biggest egos, the biggest muscles, and the biggest guns of the 90s. Next week, we're going to be turning to something only slightly less homoerotic than these movies. That is the 2000 animated film Road to El Dorado, which is, if you're not getting the reference I'm making, it was kind of it's been adopted sort of as part of the queer canon.
Yeah, it's by icons.
Whether intentional or not, it's up there with The Mummy in terms of I'm discovering I'm into a little bit of both of these. So a really fun movie, and a huge flop at the time, and we've got a PlayStation game to dig into with it. So I'm excited to get into it. We will see you all next week on The Road to El Dorado.